In 1912, Villisca, Iowa, was a farming town of just over 2,000 people. Life was simple and neighborly. People worked their fields during the day and gathered at church or community socials at night. Locks were an afterthought. Few believed evil could ever lurk in a place like Villisca. Josiah Joe Moore was a respected businessman, a husband to Sarah, and a father of 4 lively children. The family was well-liked and active in their church. On June 9, 1912, they attended a Children's Day program at the Presbyterian Church. Afterward, the Moore children begged to have their friends, Lena and Ina Stillinger, spend the night. Their parents agreed. The family and their young guests walked home together under the quiet glow of the town's oil lamps. They laughed, unaware that within hours their lives would end in a nightmare of unimaginable violence. The next morning, Mary Peckham, the Moores' elderly neighbor, noticed something strange. Normally, the family was up early tending chores, but that day their yard was eerily still. The blinds were drawn. No sound came from the house. She knocked on the door, no answer. She tried the barn, nothing. Finally, she called Josiah's brother, Ross Moore, who arrived with a spare key. The two entered the house. The air was heavy, oppressive, and strangely cold despite the summer heat. Ross made his way toward the parlor. Within moments, he stumbled back out, pale and trembling. On a bed lay the bodies of the Stillinger girls. Both had been bludgeoned to death. Ross cried out for the sheriff. What investigators uncovered inside the house defied comprehension. The Moores and their young guests, 8 people in total, had all been killed with an axe while they slept. The blows were savage. Josiah himself had suffered the worst, his face so disfigured he was barely recognizable. Each child lay tucked into bed, their faces covered with clothing or sheets, as though the killer couldn't bear to look upon what he had done, or perhaps wanted to hide them from God. Even more chilling were the bizarre details that followed. Every mirror in the house had been covered with cloth or clothing, as if to prevent reflections. A piece of bacon was found wrapped in a towel near the axe, leading some to believe the killer had strange compulsions or rituals. Curtains were drawn tight. A basin of bloody water sat in the kitchen sink, suggesting the murderer had calmly washed up before leaving. A plate of food was set on the table, untouched, as if the killer had prepared to eat but lost his appetite. The town of Villisca, once so trusting, was suddenly steeped in fear. The news spread instantly. Neighbors crowded around the Moore home in disbelief. Whispers filled the streets. Who could commit such an atrocity? Families began locking their doors for the first time. Fathers stood guard at night with shotguns. Children were forbidden from walking alone. This wasn't just a crime. It was an assault on the very heart of Villisca. The investigation dragged on, with several suspects emerging over the years. None were ever convicted, but each left behind unsettling possibilities. 1. Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher with a nervous, erratic demeanor. He was in town for the Children's Day program and left Villisca the next morning by train. Witnesses claimed he asked strange questions about the Moore house. Later, he confessed to the murders multiple times, though he frequently recanted. He described details only investigators knew, but his confession was considered unreliable due to his mental instability. 2 trials were held. One jury acquitted him, the other deadlocked. He walked free. 2. Senator Frank F. Jones, a powerful local businessman and politician. Josiah Moore had once worked for him but left to start his own business, taking valuable clients with him. Rumors swirled that Josiah had an affair with Jones's daughter-in-law. Some believed Jones hired a killer to eliminate Moore and his family. But no concrete evidence tied him to the crime, and Jones's influence kept suspicion at bay. Others believed the killer was a transient who hopped off the nearby railroad, murdered the family, and vanished into the night. Some investigators thought the killer hid in the attic until the family went to sleep, then crept out to slaughter them one by one. Over time, the case grew cold. The murderer had struck with precision, vanished without a trace, and left behind a silence that mocked every attempt at justice. The funeral for the Moore family and the Stillinger girls was one of the largest gatherings Villisca had ever seen. Thousands came, lining the streets in mourning. Coffins were placed side by side, a haunting image of innocence lost. But grief soon gave way to obsession. The case consumed the town. Lives were ruined by accusation, gossip, and paranoia. Friendships dissolved. Businesses failed. Some believed Villisca itself was cursed. And perhaps it was. Today, the Moore House still stands in Villisca. Preserved much as it was in 1912, it draws countless visitors, true crime enthusiasts, skeptics, and ghost hunters alike. Many leave unsettled, convinced the house still breathes with the memory of that night. Visitors report cold spots, footsteps, whispers in empty rooms. Some hear children's laughter or weeping. Flashlights flicker, doors slam, objects move on their own. Investigators claim the house exudes a darkness, a lingering energy of violence and fear. In one infamous case, a paranormal investigator staying overnight in the house suddenly attacked himself with a knife, later claiming he had been overtaken by something inside. Whether haunted by spirits or simply by memory, the Villisca Axe Murder House remains one of America's most chilling true crime mysteries. Over 100 years have passed, yet the identity of the killer remains unknown. No motive has ever been proven. No justice has ever been served. The Villisca Axe murders are more than a story of violence. They are a reminder of how quickly safety can shatter, how evil can hide behind the ordinary, and how some questions may never find answers. The town still carries the shadow of that summer night in 1912. And the house on the corner of Villisca's quiet street still waits, its walls whispering of a family who went to bed and never woke again.